What's going on? It's your boy Hawk here with some Talk and Squawk. So I just seen one of my former J-Dub associates, and man, it was a sad thing to see. Like, real sad. This is the first time I actually seen him in about 15 years. And I've heard from a mutual associate of ours not so long ago that he wasn't doing too good and that he didn't even remember her. And they was real tight. So the way she described the story, remind you, this is the friend who I did a video on about 2 or 3 weeks ago now. The one I contemplated leaving in the past due to her still J-Dub beliefs and taking my spiritually enlightenment as a joke and thinking that I was just rebelling against the J-Dubs for whatever weird reasons she concocted. However, the guy I'm about to discuss, he was a mutual friend of both of ours. So, anyway, my man Scott, he, like a lot of us, grew up as a Jehovah's Witness. I mean, only in his case, both of his parents were witnesses. His dad was actually, at one point, the presiding overseer at the West Walnut congregation where they attended. You know, Scott was one of 6 siblings to Wilton and Mary Bentley. You know, he had one brother that was younger than him. He had an older sister and 3 younger sisters. Now, 4 of the Bentley children, they went to Overbrook High School during the time that I went to Brook, between 1998 and 2001. Meanwhile, me and Scott, we're a year apart, so which means I was a grade below him. He graduated in 2000, and I graduated a year later in 2001. Now, I had never really knew Scott until we both were going to Brook, but I had always remembered them from the circuit assemblies way before we started going to Turnersville, New Jersey. This was way back when we were still going to Buckingham, up in Buckingham Township. And I always knew, well, but prior to us getting cool or whatever, he was always like a prick, like an asshole. You know? And I remember we had got into it one time when I accidentally stepped on his shoes. I was about 12 at the time. The first time he had gotten away and I accidentally stepped on his shoes, and I was like, oh, excuse me. And then a little while later, now this was during a lunch break, remind you. Now, about a few minutes later, we crossed paths again. And I don't know, I might have accidentally bumped him or something. So he yells out, man, that's the second time you got in my way or whatever. And I looked at him like, nah, you was in my way, homie. So we exchanged a couple words, whatever. So that was that. I really didn't pay it no mind. And then a couple of years later, and I'll never forget this because this was the last time that we had the circuit assembly at Buckingham, because at this time they was still building Turnersville Assembly Hall. So our next circuit assembly would be at Turnersville like maybe 6 months later or something like that. So it was August 1998, maybe a couple of weeks before school started. And we had a special one-day assembly at Buckingham. And remind you, this was the last time our congregations went to Buckingham, our circuit, period. That was the last time we had all went to Buckingham. Now, my cousin Sheaf, who was about a year and a half younger than me, but he was like the biggest one out of my crew. At the time, he's like 13. I'm 14 going on 15. But Sheaf is already like damn near 6 feet tall. Like, and if you looked at him, you would have thought he was like 16 or 17. But anyway, Scott accuses him of doing the same thing he did to me a couple years earlier. Now, Scott was one of those cats. He was like a real hyper dude, real, like cool, but he was real hyper, didn't always really pay attention and would get in the way. And my cousin wasn't one of those cats that looked to start any trouble. Like, he was like me, laid back, calm, cool, collective, until you push one too many buttons. But anyway, him and Scott apparently crossed paths or whatever. And my cousin comes to me and was like, yeah, me and Scott was about to get into it because he accused me of stepping on his cheap Payless shoes. Now, Scott and his family, like it was so many of them, and they was living off of one income. So I guess I'm not really sure their financial situation, but all I knew is that Scott would pass down his clothes to his younger brother. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. But they also shopped at like stores like Payless, Payless shoe stores. Like a lot of his suits might have been secondhand or whatever. So on this occasion, like apparently he had on some real good shoes, like some nice Gators or whatever. I don't know how he obtained them or whatever, but anyway, he made a real big deal over my cousin supposedly stepping on his shoes. So he's talking to me about it. He was like, yeah, you know what I mean? Scott's making a big fuss over his cheap shoes, whatever. So we're outside. This is during the lunch break. We're outside because, it's a nice August day. It's hot, but it's not super hot. So it's me, my cousin Sheaf, our homie Nad Raj, and the Jonathan brothers, who they went to the hall, but they weren't baptized or nothing like that. They just went because their mom was a newly baptized sister. But anyway, like we would all hang out like in between meetings or like assemblies or whatever. But anyway, we're all outside. Scott and a couple of his homies, they come approaching us. Scott's still talking about his shoes. Him and my cousin, they're going back and forth. And right before they approached us, Nad Raj was like, here comes Scott, you better run. And I'm like, run? I said, yeah, you're a punk, you know what I mean? But everybody had already knew that. You know what I mean? I told my cousin, I said, I got your back. Even though I know you can easily trash this dude, I got your back because he has people with him. But they start talking back and forth or whatever, and I kind of step in. I'm like, man, look, if you got a problem with my cousin over something dumb, name, it is what it is. Like, what y'all trying to do, it ain't nothing but space and opportunity. Now, for those of you that might know, or whoever's been to Buckingham, there was like a real big open field of space where we could have easily walked away from the assembly hall and we could have mixed it up if it came to it. But of course, there ain't want no smoke. Once I started letting them know what it was, you know what I mean? So they, one of the guys told me, he's like, nah, well, wasn't no problem. We just want your cousin to apologize. I said, nah, he said it was an accident, so it is what it is. And I'm like, if you keep talking, I'll purposely step on your feet right here. And if you got a problem with it, we can step out into the field and I'll do to you what Cain did to Abel. It was like, and Scott started running his mouth, oh, you's a fake tough guy, this and that. So I jump up in his face like, what's up? You know what I mean? Like, you a clown. Like, look at your gear. Like, you got some new shoes and you acting like you doing something. I'm like, Ninja, my shoes cost more than everything you got on. You know, we young boys, we talking trash, whatever. So my cousin like kind of gets in front of us, separates us. He was like, man, nah, cuz it ain't that big of a deal. And we just went on about our way. Went and talked to some of the fine young sisters. Maybe 20, 25 minutes later, now Naraj is back with us because his old coward self seen that things had calmed down, so now he wanted to hang out with us again. So we're basically back in the same spot. Now Scott and his homies, they come back, but this time their whole tune is different. And I told Naraj, I said, man, if you run this time, then you ain't going to have to worry about Scott. You're going to have to worry about us. So Naraj stayed there. Scott comes back with a whole different tune. You know what I mean? Apologizing. My cousin told me, he was like, man, I ain't got no beef with y'all, blah, blah, blah. You know what I mean? We shook hands. Like the good Christian brothers we were supposed to be. We shook hands and that was the end of that. He started clowning Naraj, calling him a JoJo and a punk because he ran and didn't have his friends back. So that was that. Now at the time, I didn't know Scott and I didn't know that he went to Brook. It was probably about maybe my first month, within my first month of going to Brook, that I seen Scott in the lunchroom and I was like, oh snap. So I walked up, we shake hands, we chopped it up. You know what I mean? We have been tight ever since. Especially the 2 years that we went to Overbrook together. You know, Scott was what you would call a worldly witness. Now, he's baptized at the time. I'm not. I'm not an unbaptized publisher. I'm not even on a theocratic ministry school. But Scott, he's baptized. He's an exemplary brother in the congregation. He's an attendant at the circuit assemblies and the conventions. He was upstanding, but he was a worldly witness for those that know him. You know what I mean? He smoked weed with us. Well, with me. We would skip class, be smoking weed in the fire towers, messing with the girls. You know, that was my homie. So when I seen him earlier today, because he still lives in West Philly, you know, I'm on the outskirts of Philly right now, and I'm like maybe 10 minutes outside the city. but I'm always in the city handling business, seeing family or doing whatever. But I just happened to see him, and I rolled up on him today, and I was like, yo, Scott, I'm beeping the horn. He's looking around. He looks at me, and he has like a puzzled look on his face like, who are you? And I was like, it's me, Eric. He thought about it for a minute. He was like, Eric, like, where do I know you from, brother? I was like, come on, you know what I mean? The Kingdom Hall, we went to Brook together. We used to always cut up. And he was like, sounds familiar. He was like, jog my memory. So I'm giving him some classic examples, thinking it would jog his memory. But he was like, I don't remember. But anyway, what's good? You know what I mean? I'm trying to refresh his memory. Now, long story short, according to our mutual friend, his dad told him had him 302 for whatever reason. I really don't know the reasons, but all I know is that his pop was like a real piece of shit to Scott. First of all, Scott was the darkest out of all of their children. So for what the mutual friend tells me was that the father was real verbally and physically abusive to Scott growing up, always calling him black and ugly, and that he was the ugly duckling of all the kids, and just like saying real foul and vile shit to him. Allegedly, because this is for what I hear. I never witnessed none of that, but then again, I was never around his family like that to know what really went on in the Bentley household. But it's just like, apparently Scott was suffering through a lot of mental illness. Apparently he had a couple of nervous breakdowns, and that led to his pop having him 302. Then that messed up his mind, because even the mutual friend, when she would see him, and they was closer than what we were, so when she said she was seeing him, he didn't know who she was. I experienced that earlier, and it's like, man, it was sad to see. You know what I mean? We exchanged phone numbers. I told him, you know what I mean, maybe I'll hit him up. I told him I'll hit him up. Maybe we can wing up, smoke a blunt, and catch up. He was like, well, I don't smoke weed no more. I only smoke cigarettes. Now, back then, he didn't smoke cigarettes, so... And it's like, he doesn't look the same. Scott was always a slender guy. Now, he's like, not fat or real obese, but he definitely put on the weight. Like, his face is real fat. You know what I mean? He just, like, he was in bad shape. Like, and it broke my heart to see my homie like that. And the friend I did the video on, I even sent her a text message saying, man, I seen Scott and you was right. He looks bad, whatever. She didn't respond yet, but I'm sure she'll call me or text me later on. But it was just sad to see, because we had a lot of good memories together. Those 2 years we went to Brook together, the times we used to walk around during the assemblies and the conventions. Scott really didn't hang out with us a whole lot outside of school and the hall, because he wasn't into playing basketball and hanging out amongst other witnesses. So it's like we mainly hung out in school and like at the assemblies and conventions. Now my little cousin and his little brother, they were real tight, so we might hang out here and there, but he wasn't really a part of like my starting team as far as hanging out, going bowling, playing ball, going to parties and gatherings, stuff like that. But like anyway, either way, he was one of my closest J-Dub associates, and the last time we hung out was the year I left the cult, when I had a housewarming at my crib, when I finally moved out of home, moved away. I had moved back home when I got divorced, or was going through the separation that led to the divorce. I had moved back home briefly, then finally moved into my first spot, was living on my own, and I had a housewarming, and Scott came through, his little brother, a couple of his cousins, and we had a real good time. Smoked, drank, you know what I mean, plenty of ladies there. So that was actually the last time we hung out, and that was 15 years ago now. So to see him today like this, like, it was heartbreaking. You know what I mean? And I wish all the best for my homie. I might reach out to him, but the way he came off, he don't remember a thing about me. So anyway, I'll keep y'all posted on any further interaction between me and Scott. But anyway, this was just some Hawks talking Squawk. Be sure to subscribe to the channel and tune in for more content. Hawk out.